There is a presence. An undeniable, all-consuming presence. When it enters the room, everything changes. Your burdens feel light. Your fears melt away. Your heart catches fire with a love so pure, so divine, that you never want to leave. Some have tasted it for a moment. Felt it in a service, in a song, in a whisper of prayer. But few have learned to live in it. Many long for this presence, but feel it fading. They cry out, "Lord, where are you? Why don't I feel you like before?" Today, I stand before you with an answer. A secret that's been hidden in plain sight. The presence of God is not a moment. Not an emotion. Not something you visit once a week. No. It is a life. A dwelling. A way of being. And the secret to abiding in His presence? It's simpler than you think. So simple, most people miss it. Listen carefully. There's a reason the enemy fights you. A reason distractions show up. A reason doubt creeps in. A reason you feel dry, even when you pray. Because the enemy knows. If you ever truly step into God's presence and stay there, you will be unstoppable. You will walk in power. You will speak, and things will shift. You will carry an anointing no force in hell can resist. So today, lean in. Don't miss a word. What I'm about to share won't just change your life. It will change your eternity. The secret to living in God's presence is right in front of you. And before this message ends, you will know it. Stay with me. Stay in expectation. Because heaven is about to touch earth. Real transformation starts when we dwell in God's presence. Not visit it now and then. Too many believers today live in cycles. Highs and lows. Deep moments with God, followed by dry seasons. They cry out, desperate to feel Him again. But all they find is a glimpse. A moment that fades like morning mist. That is not what God intended. His presence is not meant to be rare. It's meant to be constant. There is a place in Him where you don't chase His presence. You live in it. Every single day. What separates those who live there from those who only visit? One thing. They understand this: intimacy with God is not a moment. It is a lifestyle. Many think God's presence is a feeling. A wave of joy during worship. A moment of peace during prayer. But it's deeper than that. More powerful. God's presence isn't based on what you feel. It's based on where your heart stands. Some people have learned this. They walk in peace that doesn't shake. They speak with divine authority. Their words carry heaven's weight. They've found what many overlook. That God's presence is for everyone. Not just a chosen few. The reason many struggle? They treat God like a place to visit. Not a home to live in. But the Lord doesn't want weekend visits. He's not an occasional guest. He wants to dwell. To remain. To abide. Jesus said, "Abide in me, and I in you." That invitation has always been there. Will you accept it? Dwelling in His presence requires a shift. A letting go of noise and distraction. Many want to walk in God's presence. But won't slow down. Won't still their hearts. Won't give Him full attention. The world fights for your focus. It fills your mind with noise. Keeps you busy. So busy that you miss what your soul truly needs. But the presence of God is found in stillness. In surrender. In the quiet act of turning your heart fully to Him. That's why the enemy works so hard to keep you distracted. He knows. If you ever enter the fullness of God's presence, you won't be the same. You'll walk in victory. In power. In authority. That's why He keeps believers restless. Busy with worry. Buried in doubt. Chasing after things that lead nowhere. But today, you have a choice. You can break the cycle. You can choose to make God's presence your home. Your refuge. Your dwelling place. Living in God's presence requires a conscious decision. It is not automatic. You don't drift into His presence by accident. It is a choice. A daily surrender. A moment-by-moment awareness of His nearness. It means recognizing Him in the ordinary. Seeing His hand in every situation. Acknowledging Him in all things. And the more you acknowledge Him, the more real He becomes to you. As you remain in His presence, transformation begins. Fear loses its grip. Anxiety fades. The weight of life's burdens lifts. You begin to live from a place of rest, of confidence, of supernatural strength. This is the life God meant for you. Not a roller coaster of highs and lows, but a steady, unbroken fellowship with Him. There is no formula to enter God's presence. It's not about rituals. It's not about trying to be worthy. His presence is accessed through surrender. Let go of your own strength. Stop striving. Yield. The Holy Spirit already lives in you. His presence is already here. What's left is for you to recognize it, to acknowledge Him, to make room for Him in your daily life. When you do, you will discover what so many have missed. You will experience joy, peace, power. Not as a visitor, but as a dweller. Living in God's presence isn't about emotions. It's about deep, unwavering faith. Faith that goes beyond circumstances. Too often, people confuse God's presence with a feeling. They feel peace or joy in worship, and they think God is close. But when those feelings fade, they begin to doubt. They wonder what's wrong. They think God left. But that is a lie. One of the enemy's greatest lies. He wants you to believe that God's presence is measured by how you feel. But it's not. It never was. Faith, not feeling, is the foundation. If you depend on emotions, you'll be unstable. Always unsure of where you stand. But if you stand on faith, if you trust His word, you'll be unshakable. God never promised that His presence would always feel the same. He never said you'd always be overwhelmed with emotion. But He did promise this: I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. That is the truth. His presence is constant. His love is steady. His word does not change. Feelings come and go. One moment you're on fire. The next, you feel nothing. But God has not moved. He is still there. His presence is not ruled by your moods. It's not affected by your situation. It's anchored in His promise. In His nature. In His faithfulness. That's why faith is the key. When you walk by faith, not by sight, you stop being controlled by emotions. You know He is with you, even when you can't feel a thing. Many struggle because they're waiting for a feeling. They want something dramatic. They want a sign. They chase emotional highs. From one event to the next. One conference to the next. One big moment to another. Always looking. Never satisfied. That is not how we're meant to live. God's presence is not a wave. It is a river. A steady river that flows within you. If your faith is built on feelings, you'll always doubt. Always question. Always wonder where God went. But if your faith is built on His word, you will stand. You will walk in a depth of relationship that no storm can shake. Faith is what pleases God. The Bible says that without faith, it is impossible to please Him. Why? Because faith means trust. Faith says, God, I believe you are here, even when I don't feel anything. Faith says, I trust you, even when everything around me feels wrong. Faith is what allows you to walk in God's presence. Not just in the highs, but in every season. Some of the greatest moments with God don't come with loud music or goosebumps. They come in the quiet. In the stillness. In the moments when all you have is faith. That is where faith grows strongest. The enemy will always target your faith. He will whisper lies. He'll tell you that because you don't feel God, He must not be there. He will try to convince you that your prayers aren't working. That your worship is empty. That your connection with God is broken. But those are lies. God is closer than your next breath. His presence is not something you earn with emotion. It is something you receive by faith. The enemy wants you to doubt. To get discouraged. To stop seeking God just because you don't feel anything. But here's the truth. Faith keeps moving even when feelings fade. Faith stands when emotions fall. Faith holds on to God's promise, knowing He is faithful even when we don't understand. Living in God's presence requires a shift. A shift from emotions to faith. It means choosing to believe His word over what you feel. It means worshiping even when you don't feel like it. Praying when it feels dry. Trusting when you see no results. That is what separates the visitors from the dwellers. Those who dwell are not chasing emotions. They are anchored in faith. And when faith becomes your anchor, everything changes. You discover a new depth in your walk with God. A peace that cannot be shaken. A presence that never leaves. God's presence is not something you strive to achieve. It is something you surrender to. Many believers struggle because they think they need to try harder. Pray longer. Reach some spiritual level before they can feel God. So they keep striving. Keep chasing. Always feeling like they're falling short. But God's presence is not earned. It is received. Not through doing more, but through surrendering more. The more you yield, the more of Him you receive. The more you let go of yourself, the more space He has to move. God is not impressed with your performance. He's not counting how many religious things you do. What He wants is your heart. A heart that is fully yielded. Completely surrendered. Willing to trust Him without conditions. Many think they must become holy enough before they can feel God. But that's a lie. His presence is not for the perfect. It is for the surrendered. For those who lay everything at His feet. The moment you stop trying to earn His presence, and just surrender, you will see, He was there all along. Surrender is the key. It unlocks intimacy. It's not about proving you're worthy. It's about knowing you are already loved. So many stay away from God's presence because they feel unworthy. They see their past, their failures, their flaws. And they convince themselves God is distant. But no one is worthy. And yet, He draws near. He doesn't ask you to fix yourself first. He says, come just as you are. Surrender all. And when you do, something shifts. The burdens begin to lift. The battles begin to lose power. The fear, the anxiety, the doubt, all start to fade. In the presence of a God who is bigger than all of them. Surrender is not weakness. It is strength. It is choosing to stop controlling everything. It is saying, God, your way is better. It is letting go of your plans and saying, have your way in my life. When you live surrendered, you begin to feel the fullness of His presence. Because now, nothing is blocking Him. Many believers have not truly experienced God's presence because they are still holding on to something. One foot in the world. One foot in the kingdom. They want Him. But they won't let go of what's fighting for their heart. God will not force His way in. He moves where He is given space. If your heart is crowded with distractions, with worry, with selfish desires, there is no room for Him. But when you surrender, when you say, God, I want you more than anything, that's when His presence floods your life in ways you never imagined. Surrender is not a one-time decision. It is a daily choice. It is waking up every morning and laying down your will, your desires, and saying, God, lead me. It is trusting Him when life doesn't make sense. It is worshiping when everything feels heavy. It is believing His promises even when you don't see the evidence yet. This kind of surrender invites His presence to stay. Those who live surrendered are not shaken by trials. Because they know their lives are held in God's hands. They don't live in fear. They trust that He is in control. There is nothing more powerful than a surrendered life. That is the life where miracles happen. The life filled with peace that cannot be explained. The life that carries God's presence everywhere it goes. This is what He wants for you. Not a life of struggle. Not a life of trying to earn His presence. But a life of surrender. A life where His presence is your home. When you stop forcing your way into His presence and simply yield to Him, you will see, He was there all along. Waiting for you to let go. Waiting for you to receive Him fully. God's presence is not a place you visit. It is a place you dwell. But many live their lives moving in and out. They treat His presence like a special experience instead of a daily reality. They feel close to God in a church service. When worship music is on. Or when prayer feels powerful. But when the moment passes, when life gets busy again, they drift. They fall back into routine. They leave His presence behind as if it doesn't belong in everyday life. But this was never God's design. His presence was never meant to be a place you visit. It was meant to be the air you breathe. The ground you walk on. The foundation of your strength. Every single day. One of the biggest mistakes believers make is this: They think God's presence is tied to a location, an experience, or a feeling. They believe that to be close to Him, they need to be in a certain place, doing a certain thing. And yes, worship and prayer and fellowship help us feel connected. But God's presence is not limited to those moments. He is just as near in the quiet as He is in the loud. He is just as close at work, at home, while resting, or while doing everyday things. He is with you just as much when you fold laundry as when you kneel in prayer. The goal is not to chase moments. The goal is to live in awareness. To dwell in God's presence is to carry a constant awareness of Him. To live as if He is always near, because He is. It means shifting your mindset. From visiting Him sometimes to abiding in Him always. Jesus said, "Abide in me, and I in you." That is not a weekend invitation. That is a permanent promise. For those who choose to live in Him. Abiding means staying. Staying connected. Refusing to separate. Even in the simple things. Even in the ordinary. Abiding means you don't just call on God when you're in trouble. You walk with Him in every step. In every choice. In every thought. Many people struggle with this. Because they are distracted. Their minds are full. Full of tasks. Full of pressure. Full of noise. They let the noise of the world drown out the nearness of God. But to dwell in His presence requires something deeper. It requires intention. It requires setting your heart on Him. Setting your mind on Him. Every single day. Choosing to acknowledge Him in all things. And refusing to let life's distractions drown out the truth of His nearness. This does not mean withdrawing from life. It means inviting God into it. It means knowing He is with you as you work. As you drive. As you speak with others. It means making Him part of every moment. Not just the ones that feel spiritual. The secret to living in God's presence is not chasing after a feeling. It is training your heart to notice that He is already there. He does not come and go based on how spiritual you feel. He is constant. He is steady. He is always near. The difference is not in whether God is close. The difference is in whether you are aware. When you train your heart to stay aware of His presence, everything begins to shift. Prayer is no longer a duty. It becomes a constant conversation. Worship is no longer a song. It becomes a way of life. Peace is no longer temporary. It becomes the atmosphere around you. Those who dwell in God's presence walk differently. They do not fear, because they know they are never alone. They do not live in anxiety, because they trust His guidance. They do not feel empty, because they are constantly filled by Him. This is the life God wants for you. A life where His presence is not something you visit. It is something you carry. It is not something you chase. It is something you live in. And when you learn to dwell in His presence, you will see that everything changes. Not because He ever left. But because you finally chose to remain where He has always been. God's presence is not meant to be a mystery. It is meant to be your reality. So many live their lives wondering, will I ever experience God like that? They see others walking in deep intimacy. And they say, that could never be me. They believe the lie that God's presence is only for pastors. For leaders. For people who seem more holy. But that is not the truth. God's presence is not reserved for a few. It is available to all. To anyone who seeks Him with a sincere heart. He is not far. He is not hiding. The only thing standing in the way is your willingness to open your heart. From the beginning, God has longed to be near. That was His desire in Eden. When Adam and Eve walked in the garden, they lived in perfect fellowship with Him. They didn't search for His presence. They lived in it. But sin broke that closeness. Humanity became separated. And since that moment, the human heart has longed to return. That is why Jesus came. Not just to forgive sin. But to restore what was lost. To bring us back into communion. To make it possible to dwell in His presence again. When Jesus died and the veil was torn, that moment was not just symbolic. It was an invitation. God was saying, come close. You are no longer separated. My presence is open to you. But even now, many still live as if that veil remains. They believe the lie that says, you are not worthy. You need to do more. You have to earn your place. But the presence of God is not earned. It is received. It is not found by working harder. It is found by surrendering deeper. By believing He is near. Right now. God is already with you. He is waiting. Waiting for you to notice Him. To trust Him. To believe that He is closer than you think. To live in the reality of God's presence, you must first remove the barriers in your mind that say He is far away. Stop thinking of Him as a distant God who must be convinced to come near. He is not far. He is near. But your awareness is what changes your experience. If you live unaware, you will feel as if He is absent. But if you open your eyes, speak to Him, and invite Him into every moment, you will begin to experience His presence in ways that are undeniable. Living in His presence is not about feeling something extraordinary all the time. It is not about waiting for a supernatural moment to prove that He is with you. It is about faith. Faith believes God is present even when your emotions don't say so. Faith knows He is near even when life feels ordinary. And when you choose to live by faith, you will start to see the evidence. You will hear His voice more clearly. You will feel His peace more deeply. You will see His hand in the little things. Many spend their lives searching for an encounter with God, not realizing He is already with them. They wait for something big to happen, thinking that's what it takes. But God is not asking for a moment. He wants communion. He wants to walk with you. Talk with you. Guide you. Fill you. Transform you. He does not want to be a part of your life. He wants to be your life. And when you realize that His presence is not a mystery but a reality, everything changes. You stop striving. You stop searching. You start living with the awareness that He is already there. And when you live with that awareness, you discover that God's presence is not something to be found. It is something to be lived in. Every moment. Every day. The secret to living in God's presence is surrender. It is not about trying harder. It is not about doing more. It is not about reaching a spiritual level. It is about letting go. Many struggle to experience God because they are holding on. Holding on to their own ways. Their own plans. Their own strength. They want His presence, but they also want control. They seek Him, but they refuse to release what is in the way. But God's presence is not something you add to your life. It is something you surrender to. It is not something you grab. It is something you yield to. The more you try to control, the more distant He feels. But the moment you surrender, truly surrender, you realize He has been there all along. Waiting for you to place it all in His hands. Surrender is not only letting go of sin. It is letting go of self. It is laying down your own understanding. Your own desires. Your need to figure it all out. It is trusting that God is enough. Many believe that surrender means losing everything. That it means losing who they are. But surrender is not loss. It is gain. It is stepping into the fullness of God's presence, where everything you truly need is found. It is realizing that when you let go of your way, you make room for His. And His way is greater than anything you could plan. Living in surrender means choosing God above all. Saying, Lord, I trust You even when I don't understand. I choose You even when my flesh wants something else. I follow You even if it costs me everything. This is where true intimacy is found. Not by chasing feelings. Not by forcing spiritual moments. But by yielding to Him every single day. When you surrender, you stop trying to make something happen. You start resting in what already is. You stop striving to feel close. You begin walking in the truth that He is already near. The reason many people struggle to experience God's presence is simple. They have not fully surrendered. They come to Him with conditions. They seek Him, but only if He fits their plans. They want His presence, but they also want to hold on to what keeps them bound. But God's presence cannot be experienced halfway. You cannot walk in fullness while clinging to what separates you from Him. You must let go. Let go of the need to control. Let go of the fear that keeps you from trusting Him. Let go of distractions that pull your heart in many directions. And when you do, you will find that His presence is not far. It is right where it has always been. Waiting for you to step fully into it. Surrender is not a one-time decision. It is a daily choice. It is waking up and saying, Lord, I give You this day. I give You my thoughts, my actions, my desires. Lead me. Fill me. Have your way in me. It is living with open hands. Knowing that nothing in this world is more valuable than his presence. It is trusting him in every situation, even when things don't go your way. It is believing he is good, even when life feels uncertain. And as you walk in surrender, you will begin to feel a peace that cannot be explained. A joy that does not depend on what happens around you. A closeness with God that nothing can shake. When you live in surrender, his presence becomes the foundation of your life. You no longer chase after temporary things, because you have found the one thing that truly satisfies. You no longer feel anxious about the future, because you know he is in control. You no longer feel far from God, because you are abiding in him. And this is what he desires for you. Not just moments in his presence, but a life of constant communion. A life where you don't visit his presence, you dwell in it. A life where he is not just part of your journey, he is everything. This is the secret. This is the invitation. Let go and step into the fullness of his presence. The greatest barrier to living in God's presence is not the world around you. It is not the challenges you face. It is the condition of your heart. Many long to experience God, but they don't realize their own hearts have become the obstacle. The heart is where communion begins. And it is also where separation takes root. If your heart is divided, distracted, or weighed down with things that pull you away, you will struggle to fully experience him. God does not pull away from his children. But when your heart is not fully surrendered, it becomes hard to sense how near he really is. A heart filled with fear or worry cannot rest in God's presence. Fear creates distance, not because God leaves, but because fear blinds you from seeing he is there. Doubt makes you question if he is truly with you, even though he never left. Worry fills your thoughts so completely that you miss the peace that comes from abiding in him. To live in God's presence, you must learn to guard your heart. You must recognize the things that steal your awareness of him and refuse to let them take root. His presence does not come and go based on your feelings. It is cultivated by intention. By keeping your heart aligned with his. That means choosing to trust even when it's hard. It means fixing your mind on his truth instead of letting emotions shape your view of him. A heart that is set on God will stay aware of him. But a heart distracted by the cares of this life will constantly feel far from him. That is why the Bible says, guard your heart above all else. Because everything flows from it. When your heart is surrendered, free from distraction, fully devoted to him, his presence becomes a reality you cannot deny. You don't have to try to feel close, because your heart is already open to receive. A pure heart will experience God in every moment. Not just in worship, but in daily life. The reason some people experience his presence so deeply is not because they are more spiritual. It's because their hearts belong to him completely. There is nothing standing between them and God. They have let go of anything that competes for their devotion. And in that surrender, they have made room for him to fill them completely. This is why surrender matters. If your heart is full of pride, distractions, or selfish desires, there will be little space left for God. He does not force himself. He fills the space you give him. If you give him only a small piece of your heart, you will experience only a small portion of his presence. But if you give him everything, holding nothing back, you will walk in a fullness you never imagined. That is why the fully surrendered live with constant awareness of him. Their hearts are fixed on him. Their desires match his. Their minds stay on him. A heart that truly seeks God will always find him. He does not hide from those who long for him. He reveals himself to those who earnestly seek. But the seeking must be real. It must come from love. Not just a desire to feel something. Many people chase an experience instead of chasing God. They long for emotion instead of intimacy. But God's presence is not an emotional high. It is a lifestyle of abiding. It is not about a moment of feeling. It is about being with him, always. And that requires a heart that desires him above all else. If you want to walk in the fullness of God's presence, start with your heart. Ask yourself, what is filling it? Are there things in your life taking priority over him? Are there distractions keeping you from dwelling in him? Is fear, doubt, or worry clouding your awareness of his nearness? If so, surrender them. Lay them at his feet. And invite him to take his rightful place. When he becomes your greatest desire, when your heart is truly his, you will no longer search for his presence. You will be living in it.